Hi, good day everyone. It is a great pleasure of mine to be invited to give you all a small talk on aquaponics. So to begin with, my name is Rakesh Bhukal. I am Managing Director of Aquatic Solutions. We are a hydroponic, aquaponic, aquaculture company that based in Trinidad and Tobago, and we specialize in these three unique areas of agriculture. So aquaponics is a real big topic, not just locally, right, regionally, as well as internationally as well, right? And hopefully at the end of this little session, you all would see why, right? It's actually one of the most sustainable forms of agriculture in existence in the entire world, right? And I mean, you'll be the judge of it after we, complete the program today, so you can have a better idea of exactly what it has to offer in terms of as a system you could use in your backyard, or you could use it for commercial purposes to generate revenue, right? So basically, aquaponics is the combination of aquaculture and hydroponics. It's the best of both technologies, right? So basically, with aquaculture, we farm aquatic organisms, right? Whether it's crayfish, fish, shellfish, different types of shellfish, um, as well as plants as well too. Once it's an aquatic environment. And hydroponics is the cultivation of plants without soil, aka soilless agriculture. You all may have been introduced to this before, right? So basically, aquaponics is a combination of the both, right? So in aquaculture, we typically, when fishes and all the different aquatic organisms produce waste, right? This waste typically needs to be discharged into the environment, right? Now, this has a lot of environmental consequences, right? Because this waste is very high in nutrients, and it could cause things like eutrophication, which could cause a lot of problems for your aquatic systems, right? And hydroponics, we need to more or less purchase or basically find some sort of artificial nutrients that we add into our systems. And in most instances, this comes at a cost, right? So basically in hydroponics, we more or less need to spend money for nutrients, right? And aquaculture, we kind of releasing these nutrients when we do fish water changes, etc., into the environment. So basically, aquaponics, by combining both aquaculture and hydroponics, we're able to utilize this wastewater from the aquaculture component, right, and put it into our hydroponic component to grow our plants. So we kind of getting rid of the waste on one end by turning it into a valuable input into the hydroponic system, and we're growing plants more or less for free in an organic fashion. Now, when the plants utilize these nutrients, right, it basically removes it from the water. So we end up with clean water that is now cycled back to the aquaculture component. So by combining the both, you realize extending your water life, you're able to reduce the environmental consequences of aquaculture, as well as increase the benefits towards the hydroponic aspect in terms of growing organically in an organic fashion, as well as gaining nutrients for free, right? So basically, how this lecture is going to be broken up, right? I will first discuss the aquaculture component, right? And then I will go into the hydroponic component and then combine the both to show you all how the combination can make aquaponics work, right? So to begin, I'll just give you all a brief background on what aquaponics is, right? So again, it's a combination of aquaculture and hydroponics, the best of both technologies, right? So we have, what we have here is basically a clear water fish tank, a recirculating aquaculture system. So in here, we would typically go like with tilapia or any form of aquatic organisms. It don't have to be tilapia, it could be different types of fish. It could also be crayfish, prawns, you name it. And then we have the hydroponic component, right? So basically, in this component, we grow our plants, right? So that could be lettuce, it could be pak choy, it could be cucumbers, you name it. So anything it could basically grow in hydroponics, it could more or less grow in aquaponics, right? And basically, the combination of both is where we really see the benefits, right? So as you can see to the bottom, right, this is an aquaponic system. So we basically cannot extract the aquaculture part as one section, the hydroponic part as another section, and we combine the both together to give us the complete system. So, how does aquaponics actually work, right? So basically, when we combine the aquaculture component together with the plant component, there's a middle ground, right? Which is what we could see in the middle here under the plus sign, which is bacteria, right? So we have beneficial bacteria, what we call nitrifying bacteria, that exists in any aquatic system. So in an aquaponic system, what we basically have, we have the fish producing waste, right? We have this bacteria converting this waste, right? And this waste is now made available as plant nutrients for the plants. Yeah. So that's basically, in a nutshell, the three organisms that really constitutes or makes up an aquaponic system. So again, it's the complete management of fish, plants, as well as bacteria. You know, a lot of persons think that it's just fish and plants, right? But that's not true, because you do have the nitrifying bacteria that is necessary and essential to make aquaponics work. So aquaponics is not new, right? As much as people think that, you know, it's a new technology, it actually isn't. It's an ancient practice. It was actually practiced way back when by the Aztecs and the early Chinese, right? So this picture is really a painting, and it depicts how ancient civilizations actually grew plants on floating islands. And in these islands, right, and the areas that they floated on, they would usually typically have fish within these ponds, which would add nutrients to the water. And then the plants that floating on this water able to grow by utilizing these nutrients. So in essence, it is a form of aquaponics. So these basically just photos of some of the ancients, you know, you saw the painting before, but these actual photos of how ancient persons used to actually practice aquaponics. So currently we still have basic forms of aquaponics, right? Such like what is being done in Indonesia, for instance, right? So what you're seeing here is a very simple picture of rice, right? And you know, like if you're passing Caroni, you would see the big rice fields when you're passing by Trantril in the back of Yui there, right? So we have those rice fields, and they usually have irrigation channels throughout these rice fields, because rice are C4 plants, and they could basically grow in these types of environments. So basically what the Indonesians and even some of the Chinese and stuff, so most of these Asian countries, what they did, they incorporated both fish as well as the rice together in the same system, something called pisciculture. You know, you could look it up on Google, pisciculture. So basically the channels are irrigation channels. They actually put tilapia, they put fish, they actually put crabs, some of them actually put crayfishes and stuff as well, right, within these channels. Now, by doing that, they're able to harvest 2 crops instead of 1 in the same area, right? And the added benefit is that these aquatic organisms that they place into the channels, guess what? They produce waste, and this waste fertilizes the plants or the rice. So again, this is also a basic form of aquaponics. What we know today as aquaponics is really modern day aquaponics. That's utilizing all the fancy tanks and grow pipes and all these different sort of things. But at the end of the day, the principles all remain the same. Right? So basically, remember I said I'm going to break it up into the aquaculture component and the hydroponic component, right? To bring together what aquaponics really is, right? So now we're going into the aquaculture component. So basically, what is aquaculture? So aquaculture is the farming of aquatic organisms, so fish, shellfish, right? Aquatic plants. It could be freshwater, saltwater, or brackish water. Right now, I just need to point this out. Everything that I'm speaking about in aquaculture also directly applies to aquaponics, because aquaponics has an entire aquaculture component in it. Yeah, just to be clear. Yeah, so these are some of the organisms that are cultured in aquaculture. Right now, aquaculture alone as a standalone industry has very huge potential. It's actually the fastest growing area of animal food production in the entire world. In Trinidad, is very relatively underdeveloped at the moment, right? And I mean, there are a number of factors that account for this, but I'd rather not get into that right now. Yeah, but the technology is there and it is available. Right? So in Trinidad, we farm 5 major aquaculture species, right? Some of you all may or may not be familiar with them. One is the tilapia, the other one is the cascadoo, right? You know, we actually have a local saying here in Trinidad, and if you eat cascadoo, no matter where you go in the world, you need to return back to Trinidad before you die, you know. So we have a lot of folklore and stuff, you know, on this fish, and it's also a delicacy. Then we have crayfish. What you see in there, that's me actually holding that crayfish. This is one of our local species here in Trinidad. It's the Macrobacterium cassinus. It is the largest freshwater crayfish in the entire South American continent. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential for alternative species as well in aquaculture in Trinidad and Tobago, and hopefully in due time we would have a lot of these in production as well. Yeah, and then we have here the Macrobacterium rosenbergi, right, or the Malaysian prawn. This is currently also being done here in Trinidad and Tobago. And then we have the conch, which is also another local delicacy. You more typically see these things like when you're going up Mayaro and stuff like that. You see that the side of the road, because it's really typically harvested from a lot of the waterways in the Mayaro, Manzalena area. Yeah, but it's also an excellent aquaculture species as well, meaning you can cultivate these things in a controlled environment. So almost 50% of seafood is farm raised, right? I mean, it may or may not strike some of you all, but if you go to places like Price Mart and stuff like that, and you see all the salmon and you see the shrimp, and you figure these people go there and they catch these things in the ocean, that's not entirely true. Most of the products in Price Mart that you see in seafood base comes from aquaculture farms, right? And the majority of it is imported as well too, right? So aquaculture actually has huge potential, right? And global production has doubled in the past 15 years, right? And I mentioned this to you all before, aquaculture is the fastest growing area of animal food production worldwide. And you can just see in this basic graph in the bottom. So aquaculture represents the purple area, right? So as you can see, it's still growing, and it's growing faster than capture fisheries like traditional fishing, right? As well as indoor capture fisheries, like if you go in rivers and those kind of things. So in Trinidad, we have two major types of systems, right? We have pond culture, which is considered extensive, meaning we need large areas of land, and we have our fishes, etc., in these ponds. And then we have tank culture, which is where we would focus our attention today, right? Because it's through tank culture we're able to do aquaponics, right? So basically in tank culture, we can have two types, one clear water, as you can see to the left, and the other is green water, as you can see to the right. So the difference is, if you cover a fish tank, right, and you keep it away from sunlight, it will remain clear because you wouldn't get the algae building up within the system. So that is considered clear water aquaculture. If you leave it open to the environment and the waste from the fish, which is high in nutrients, builds up within the system, algae naturally colonizes it and it gets green. So this is green water aquaculture. For aquaponics, we always use clear water aquaponics. Aquaculture. Simply because the algae is a pest, or I guess a pest is like a weed within the system because it is a microscopic plant, right? And while the fishes or your organisms produce the nutrients, before your plant's able to utilize it, the algae will utilize it and your plants will remain deficient. So that's why we currently use green water aquaculture. So major components of an aquaculture system or a recirculating aquaculture system, that way you see in RAS on top, right? So that stands for recirculating aquaculture system because the water recirculates within itself, right? So the major components are fish tank, where we use for fish growth, a mechanical filter for solid removal, a biological filter for ammonia conversion, aeration system for oxygen addition, and a pump system to allow the water to flow through the system. So these are basic components of our recirculating aquaculture system, right? So now we have a better visual idea of what these components are. So the first is a fish tank, and a lot of us might be familiar to the tanks to the bottom right, the white tanks. So those are IBC tanks, intermediate bulk containers. So those transport a lot of different types of chemicals, food-based products, etc. And it's very common because it's very cheap, right? So a lot of persons use that for aquaculture and aquaponics, yeah? And the other tanks, most of those are commercially available, right? So they could be circular, rectangular, square, they come in different shapes, sizes, you know. Each has its advantages and disadvantages. So the other component is the mechanical filter, right? And we need this to remove the solid waste from the system. So where do we get solid waste from? When the fish produces feces, as well as any uneaten feed, etc., right? Those are considered solid waste, and we need some sort of mechanism to remove this waste from the system. So this is the purpose of our mechanical filter. So this is a simple filter. This is a filter that I built for one of my systems at home, right? So it was using a 5-gallon bucket, one of those pigtail buckets, gravel, a simple mechanism that I designed in it. And as you can see, a clean filter exists to the left, one to the right. So you could actually see the efficiency of removing the waste from the system. Right, these are some other popular mechanical filters. If you go on Google and YouTube, you would see some of them, some built out of barrels, some a little more commercially available, all performs the same function to remove solid waste. And then you have your biological filter. So this is an extremely important filter as well, right? So this is where the liquid waste from the fish, which is typically ammonia, right? So fishes excrete ammonia through the gills and through feces, right? And this ammonia is basically what is converted to something called nitrates, right? Which is the form of ammonia that plants could utilize for growth and development. So your biological filter actually has the bacteria colonizing all these little particles within it, right? That converts the ammonia, right, to a form that the plants could use for growth and development. Right, so basically the bacteria are very crucial for this process. So in a simple diagram to the bottom here, we see fish, right? So the fish produces ammonia, right? So through the gills, through feces, etc. There's bacteria within the system, within the biological filter, that converts this ammonia, right, into a form that the plants could utilize for growth and development. So this is basically the nitrification process in an aquaponic system. Right now in aquaculture, right, you basically also have the ammonia being converted to the nitrates. It's just that you don't have any plants to utilize it. Okay? So biofilter, you have simple media that you could place within the biofilter to help the bacteria colonize to convert this ammonia. So you could use gravel, you could use bottle caps, you could use fish netting, you could use pot scrubs. So there's a lot of everyday items you could use to put and to make a biofilter with. Yeah? So it's nothing that you really need to go and purchase any expensive equipment, because some of those commercial material could be relatively expensive. You know, a lot of negatives, one of the biggest drawbacks to, you know, getting yourself involved in aquaculture or aquaponics is a lot of persons say that, you know, it's very expensive, right? And it's very costly. But that's not really true. You could really reuse a lot of everyday materials to make your own simple aquaponic systems. And within this session as well, I would show you all a very simple system that I built at home, and you would see the kind of productivity that I got from it, right? Using everyday materials as well as recycled materials. Eh? So another component of our aquaculture system, also an aquaponic system as well as the aeration system, right? This is very important because without dissolved oxygen, your fish or your aquatic organisms wouldn't be able to survive, your bacteria wouldn't be able to survive, and your plants wouldn't be able to survive. Okay, so how do we add this oxygen into the system? We have aeration devices like air stones. I know a lot of us would be familiar with aquariums. So you know you have the little air pumps that you have the air stones inside. Right, it's no different. It's just that in an aquaponics or aquaculture system, we use bigger air stones, right? So if we look in the top right, we would see a disc. So this is a disc diffuser. So this has a lot more oxygen and is more applicable to bigger tanks and bigger systems that you would typically have with aquaculture and aquaponics. And this device to the right is an air blower. So this is basically like a very big air pump. Yeah. So together, all of these things adds aeration into the system, which is a crucial thing. And then you have your water pump, right? And basically, your water pump circulates the water throughout your system. Okay? So I always like to refer to your water pump as the heart of your system, because it is here that the water is really pumped through all the different components. So what type of fish do we culture here in Trinidad? Right, so food fish in Trinidad, the most popular is tilapia, and we have 3 important species of tilapia that's cultured locally: the Nile or the silver tilapia, the Mozambique or the black tilapia, and the red hybrid. So the first of all, first and foremost is the Nile or the silver tilapia, right? So this is basically what it looks like, right? We have the Mozambique or black tilapia, and then we have the red hybrid, right? We have a 4th species as well. There are a couple of persons that actually grow it locally, but is not suited for culture in Trinidad and Tobago or the Caribbean because it's a cool water species. It does a lot better in cooler type environments. Right, so this is basically some local tilapia cuisine, right? So, you know, people start thinking tilapia just curry, fry, you know, everyday cook. But at the same time, tilapia could also be used in unique dishes, right? So this was actually by a client of mine. He has one of the largest aquaculture facilities in Trinidad and probably the Caribbean, right? And for his Christmas party, he actually had various dishes being prepared using tilapia. So you had a chef on board. So we're seeing there's different types of sushi, right? To the top right, you're seeing little things like little shot glasses. Those are tilapia caviar. And these things tasted exceptionally good. Yeah, and all from using tilapia, all locally made. Another species that we culture locally is cascadoo, right? So these are some cascadoo I had at my facility in South, right? So again, tilapia is also an exquisite fish for aquaculture and aquaponics, right? And it's a local delicacy, right? So basically, these just me preparing some some cascadoo here. So these are actually some photos from me, right? So I harvested some cascadoo, putting some aloo in it, you know, some potatoes, right? And made some curry cascadoo. And I can tell you one thing for who didn't taste this thing before, it is literally a delicacy. Yes, so this is a photo that I took as well of cascadoo in the, I think this was True Value in Grand Bazaar, right? So, you know, the packaged tilapia, so it's also available commercially as well too, but in Trinidad, we really do have any large farms producing cascadoo at the moment, right? Now, cascadoo is very popular in places like Guyana and things as well. They call it hassa there. Yeah? So it also a species of great potential for aquaculture and aquaponics. Right, so this is the crayfish I mentioned to you all before. This is some of mine, right? The Macrobacterium cassinus, right? So again, this is me preparing some cassinus here for eating purposes, and I could tell you firsthand, this thing is literally also another delicacy, right? So who didn't taste crayfish before, right? You all need to try it. Yeah. So that's me for those who, or for the majority of you all who do not know me or what I look like. Yeah. So that's me there enjoying my Macrobacterium cassinus. You know the old saying, you know, you grow what you eat and eat what you grow. You know, as I live an example of that. You know, so everything I grow, I put into food production. You know, I consume it myself, so I can tell you firsthand, you know, how these things taste, and I can tell you, you wouldn't regret it. You know, actually growing and eating some of these things for yourself. Right, so these are another crayfish species. These also my crayfishes here. This is the Australian red claw. Right, so they're still at the juvenile stage in this photo. I didn't take the updated photos. Sorry about that. Right, but I did include some photos. This is our online photo, right, of what it looks like when it's at adult stage. Yeah. So that was just a little section on the aquaculture component, different species, different tanks and stuff. Now we get into the hydroponic component. Now everything I'm about to share with you here is also applicable to aquaponics, because the only difference between aquaponics and hydroponics is the source of nutrients. So in aquaponics, the nutrient source comes from the fish or the aquatic organisms when it's converted. And with hydroponics, it comes when you add it into your system. More or less, the majority of the times from an inorganic source of nutrients. Okay? So hydroponics is referred to as soilless gardening, right? So basically, it's the cultivation of plants without soil. It simply means the science of growing plants without soil. right? And it's an ancient practice as well, just as how we have aquaculture and aquaponics being ancient, so too is hydroponics. So, why do hydroponics, right? So there is a lot of advantages to doing hydroponics. It is a climate smart technology, meaning it's something suitable, is a suitable technology for moving into the future when we're subjected to environmental problems such as global climate change. So changes in weather patterns, too much rain, too little rain, unpredictable weather patterns. When you grow plants out of soil and it's not under the constraints of all the environmental conditions, right? You could really grow more sustainably and more productively, right? And adapt to any type of change in environment. So hydroponics is very efficient, it's fast growing, more crops in less space. Actually, it's a 75% smaller footprint, less pests and weeds, less physical labor, right? No weeding actually. So let's look at the system to the right. There's a system I built as well. You see the bottom is concrete, right? The plants growing in PVC pipes. So basically there's no weeding, there's very minimal pest and disease. When it comes to sanitization and stuff, all I do is just throw a little bit of bleach water in the bottom, make it clean up the area, so you can keep it in a very conducive environment for growing plants. Yeah. Less water than traditional farming, because with hydroponics and aquaponics, you're no longer broadcasting water into the soil that would just leach and just go beyond the usable zone for the plants. You actually recirculate these things over and over and over to your plants, so nothing is ever really wasted, right? And a lower concentration of nutrients could be used as well, which could also translate into something more economical in terms of cost, when I look at cost for fertilizers, etc. And again, no loss of nutrients due to leaching. So, why hydroponics and aquaponics really produces crops in a shorter space of time. It produces, better crops in terms of yield in most instances. If we look at the typical soil profile, bottom left, right? So basically we're seeing these cross sections as soils from different areas. And you can see it's different compositions. Some suited for plant growth, some not well suited for plant growth. A lot of persons think that they need soil for growing plants. That's not true. Soil is provide plants with 4 basic things: support, air, water, and nutrients. If you're able to provide plants with these things out of soil, you'll get extremely good production. Yeah. If you look to the bottom right, you would see a waterlogged soil. So again, soil is not really the most ideal thing for growing plants. If too much rain falls and the soil becomes waterlogged, what happens to your plants? They wilt and die. If too much sun comes out, guess what happens? Same thing, they also wilt, and extreme circumstances, if they don't get water, they could also die, right? But in hydroponics and aquaponics, we have a good balance that we strike in between too much water, too little water, too much nutrients, too less nutrients, too much air, too little air, and we give the plants what it needs. Once something gets what it needs, it will grow without much hindrance and will grow to its best potential. Right, so this is actually a photo of my parents. I didn't know that I was going to use it in any photo and in any presentations. So, don't tell them I actually put them up because my dad come because he be back and take any photo. But so basically what I have here is a simple little backyard system. Yeah. And what we have here is lettuce production. This lettuce was just over 3 weeks, going into 4 weeks, and you can see the quality for yourself. Right, so this is how a simple backyard system will look like. Right, what I have to the right here as well is also some cucumbers I grew from a hydroponic system also. Now to the bottom left is what hydroponics and stuff looks like internationally. Right, so basically you've seen one individual in this photo. This greenhouse facility goes on for acres. Everything is fully automated. The plants moves out on rails. There's no walking room in between because nobody needs to walk in between. Everything is fully automated. And this is the level on which hydroponics and aquaponics and stuff like that is being done on a global scale, but more so hydroponics. Yeah. So, we get in there, but again, it takes a little while for us to really fully utilize the technologies that really is suitable for our climate. Again, on the international forefront, hydroponics and aquaponics is also going vertical, more crops and less space. right? So if you look at us in Trinidad, our local situation is that while we don't have a very expansive amount of land available to us, we could adapt and overcome. So if we go vertical, for instance, look at this photo, right? This young lady is holding up a plant, right? So, and basically in this column, it has about 10 plants going up, by about 4 plants going around. So typically 40 plants in this one column. So let me say it occupies the space of 2 plants here, right? This column. So in the space of 2 plants, it could grow 40. So you see how, going vertical could really maximize on your potential. And this is what hydroponics and aquaponics offers the farmer or the person who wants to get involved in agriculture, right? The ability to maximize on production and increase productivity per unit area. You could also grow indoors, right? So what you see here is some kale, and we do it with some indoor growing. So there's basically an online photo that that I basically pulled to show you all indoor potential. But what I will also show you is a system that I built. Very simple, using a price mat container to the bottom, flip over the container, put in a submersible pump, the water flowing up with the nutrients, grow lights, and you're able to grow plants. Right now, you could put this in your kitchen, you could put it in your living room. Basically, it's very aesthetically pleasing to the eyes, and it could grow all the seasonings and everything that you need as well too. So, I mean, while you're seeing on the international forefront, a lot of things being done, right? If we adopt some of these technologies, we could do it just as well right here in Trinidad. So local potential, hydroponics is gaining a lot of attention, right? So it's in the media, it's in newspapers, because a lot of persons realizing the potential of hydroponics. And again, the same thing that applies to hydroponics also applies to aquaponics. Aquaponics is a newer kid on the block. Yeah, it's just your source of nutrients, now it's different. So if you think hydroponics was really making marks around the world, right? Think about what aquaponics could do, because it's way more sustainable and you're producing 2 crops in the space of 1. So basically back to hydroponics here. So 4 typical designs that are most popular in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean. One is a nutrient film technique using your PVC pipes, your deep water culture system, right? So the picture to the top is a system I built, the bottom is a online photo. The reason why I say an online photo is because I want to bring you all back when I'm showing you all the systems that I did right here in Trinidad and the kind of production, right, that I was able to achieve, right, from a DWC or a deep water culture system that's locally made. Yeah. And then we have drip to waste systems, right? So basically this drip to waste system you're seeing here is a system that was done by the Ministry of Agriculture. This was at UE Tech Agri Expo, right? So I took that photo there, and it's a very basic form of hydroponics, right? So basically I had nutrients in the reservoir to the top, the 2 black containers, water and nutrients, and it basically drips through the pipes onto the plant roots, right? And we'll get into Dutch buckets just now. So the first system that I'd like to point out is a nutrient film technique. So basically it's just a system where you have a container and the water is pumped into a channel, right? Which is in most instances is a length of PVC pipe of different size. It could be 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch, 6-inch, you name it, right? And you have your plants with the roots immersed in this water, and they're able to utilize the water and the nutrients for growth and development. So that's basically what an NFT system is like in a nutshell. In an aquaponic system, all you're doing, you're changing out this reservoir and you're putting in your fish component, yeah, your aquaculture component. And you have the water from the aquaculture component, which is rich in nutrients, flowing through your pipes. So you see, it's just the plant component remains identical, it's exactly the same, it's just your source of nutrients changes. So this is some hydroponics I would have done. We actually have a research and demonstration center in here in Trinidad where we do a lot of research into different types of hydroponics, aquaponics, and aquaculture systems. It's on our 1-acre facility that we're currently expanding on right now, right? So, I mean, for those of you all who would like to, after this presentation, would like to come back and view some of these systems and see the kind of work that we're doing, I'd leave my contact details so you could contact, you all can contact us, right? And we could always arrange we could always arrange a time when you could come back and we could give you all a tour and you could actually see some of the work and the unique work, because we have systems and stuff that not really being done by anybody or any institution as yet here in Trinidad. And we will share this with you as well. Yes, so the first system is a nutrient film technique, right? So this is basically one of the systems we have at the demonstration center, right? These are some different projects that we would have worked on for clients as well as for ourselves as well. Yeah. So this is me again, holding up some produce that I was able to achieve from our system design, our nutrient management plan in our hydroponic system. So you see, the thing about it is, you know, being in production is one thing. Having a quality product is a totally totally other subject matter, right? And the thing about it is, I am real big on having quality produce, right? Quantity as well, right? But quality, right, is always about having a quality product. Yeah, and you know, that's what we really strive to basically produce. And this is what we actually teach people to do as well. You know, how they can design the systems, how they can manage it to give a quality product. Yes, so like, all right, so let's say for instance, you're looking at the picture to the right. The space between that aisle was 2 feet, and that picture leaves were bending on either sides. So the diameter was a little over 2 feet in diameter, and that's one picture alone from a hydroponic system. So that's when we speak about quality of produce and, you know, maximizing production. This is the kind of goal we're aiming for, right? The lettuce to the left is bronze, and typically you wouldn't see that kind of lettuce that size in the market. Right, again, in hydroponics, once you really know what you're doing, you can optimize the production. Right, so this is again from our research and demonstration center. So this is cucumbers we were producing in an NFT system as well. And as you can see, the productivity for yourself, right? And we were able to achieve this production with minimal use of pesticides or anything like that. Because again, you're growing in more or less a control type environment, 90% of pest and disease is actually eliminated from your system. This is some kale from our demonstration center as well too, right? And we were able to produce this in NFT hydroponics, extremely efficient, extremely fast growing. We also did kale in our aquaponics system as well, so we will come to that later down. Right, and again, I would like to reiterate again, while this is not a presentation on hydroponics, everything here applies to aquaponics as well. Right, this is another system we did for a client. Right, so that's just a little overview on NFT and the potential of NFT hydroponics. Right, so we have deep water culture system here now. So the deep water culture system, we basically have a container. In that container, we have the nutrient solution with some aeration, and we have the plant roots immersed within it. Yeah, so again, the little online photo showing you what the deep water culture system could do, right? I would just like to show this and point out that is online, because then I'll show you all what I have done with extremely low resources, because I mostly recycled everything and was able to get exceptional results. And the thing about it is, you could do the same thing too. Drip systems, basically with a drip system, you just have your nutrient reservoir and you had the nutrient-rich water dripping on your plant roots. Yeah. So again, this is the drip system that was being promoted by the Ministry of Agriculture. I think this, as far as they go with respect to hydroponics and technology. Right now, this is a system that we have right now at our demonstration facility, and these were some of the results we were able to get from it. Right, so basically, to the far right is some melangen. Right, so this is one that was actually in production. We have a younger one coming up here, so 2 buckets were side by side, and you can see, you know, the quality of the plants, the quality of the product as well too. Yeah. These some tomatoes from our drip systems, right? You can see the quality again, right? So this is a drip to waste system using our hydroponic blends and our fertilizers and our management plans and our designs as well. So very efficient, very fast growing, quality speaks for itself. By the way, this was just from 6 trees, right? And I harvested these when we had in Trinidad, we had the COVID, the lockdown period. I did a lot, I had all my systems up and running. right? And yeah, and you can see the production for yourself. This is some sweet peppers as well too. These from 6 sweet pepper trees, right, from our drip to base system as well. And you can see the kind of productivity we got from it. Now, again, while this is from hydroponics, all I need to do is switch out my nutrient source, connect it to my aquaculture system, right? And the same type of results could also be achieved because we have achieved equivalent or even better results from our aquaponic systems. Yeah, so this is another a grow pipe system is also a drip system that we have as well on display. Right, this is using PVC items. So one thing is always being innovative, finding different items you could utilize to do your various systems. So you're not limited with any one particular design. Once you really understand aquaponics and hydroponics, you could use anything and utilize it for your systems. Right, so these are a vertical system as well. We also have on display, right? This we have on display as well. This is growing kale. I'm sorry, my mistake. Parsley, right? I mean, it's so green it confused me with the kale, right? So this is the kind of parsley production we was able to achieve from the system as well too. So it's also a good option, right? If you look to the far right and to look to the back of it, you would see some of the other systems that I shared with you all in previous photos. Yeah. So the nutrient film technique, you could use different types of pipes. There's 2x4, 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch, all produces good results, but it will depend on the type of crops you want to grow. That's the type of pipes you would choose to basically be able to adequately compensate for root growth and all these different sort of things. Okay. So there's some production again from using 2x4 pipes, right? And I mean, this is from our system, so I can say firsthand, you can get exceptional results from it. Right, so then we have 2-inch, 3-inch, and 4-inch. So these are all from systems that we did as well too. And again, also good production and good results. So what I'm going to share with you all now is some photos of the kind of production you can get from using 2-inch PVC. Now, there are a lot of persons telling you that you can't use 2-inch. They tell it in hydroponics, they tell it for aquaponics. And if anybody tell you that, they don't know what they're talking about. Because a lot of persons are going and reading stuff online, they have very limited experience, right? And then they come in and they're proclaiming to know all the ins and outs of hydroponics and aquaponics. I don't know all the ins and outs, I still learning, but I could tell you from the years of experience and research that I did, right? Actually doing this for myself, I could tell you, you can get exceptional results using any type of pipe once you know what it is you're doing. So this is 2-inch, right? There's some systems I did for 2 clients of mine, right? The photos to the right was done at UE for a research project. This is some I did as well too, right? So this is a system we have at our research center, right? And you can see these are some progressive photos showing you the production. Right now, if you look closely, you would see the quality of the product, the uniformity, right? Are the different, there's 2 types of lettuce here. This is bronze and iceberg, right? There's no signs of bolting, there's no nothing. Again, it all comes back down to having a proper design, right? And really understanding how it is you go about doing these things. Yeah, so again, this is from using 2-inch. Now, why does I keep stressing 2-inch, 2-inch, right? When it comes back down to investing into aquaponics and hydroponics, right? Your initial investment is a big determining factor on actually getting started and the scale at which you can get started. Okay? And if you could use an item that will give you an equivalent result, right, and it's cheaper than alternative items, then why not use it, right? So in my systems, I grow lettuce and I use 2-inch pipe, right? 2-inch PVC basically, it will cost roughly about $45 per link. $45, and I could grow 22 plants on that. 22 of these plants you see in here. So let me just say that's at $5 for one, right? So you multiply 22 by 5, Okay, that's wholesale price, sometimes 6, sometimes 10, depending on the market, right? At the expense of $45 for that grow pipe. Then compare it to using a 2x4 pipe, which could run you somewhere like about $175 to $185. Okay, so you can see cost difference is a lot. So really understanding your hydroponics is where it all starts. And I think this is why this program was done, to really introduce you all to different forms of agriculture and how to do it professionally and scientifically. Right, so this is 3-inch, so all of these I would have done as well too. Right, this photo here was done for my favorite client, Dr. Wendy and Isaac. This is a system she has at her home, right, for home use. So again, you know, hydroponics, it comes in different designs, and this is a double layer system as opposed to going completely horizontal. Yeah, right, so these pak choy were grown in using 3-inch pipes. Right, so all of these crops here were grown using 3-inch pipes, and I grew these crops myself. Right, so this is my dad again, right, with his lettuce. As you can see, this lettuce was never sprayed with anything, right? It was grown totally pesticide free, right? And that's my mom's there, right? So that more or less takes care of the potential of NFT, hydroponics and aquaponics, right? So we have here a photo of a Dutch bucket system, right? And basically this Dutch bucket system is at our research and demonstration center as well, right? What you're seeing there is watermelon production. Yeah, so that's watermelon, the photo to the left and to the top right, and to the bottom is cucumbers. Yeah, and those two buckets is really, that system comprised of 10 Dutch buckets, and I had a mixture of both watermelons and cucumbers. And I can tell you one thing, if you all had seen the photo, like I can't share all the photos in this one presentation, but again, you can see for yourself how healthy the plants look, the quality, amount, the productivity was beyond what I expected. Yeah, and these are the kind of things we actually, you know, researching, and again, these things tested and proven, right, for our climate, and you all could venture into whatever type of design you all want, right? So it's all dependent on your situation, right? So now let's bring it together. Let's combine the aquaculture and the hydroponics to really show you what aquaponics could do for you. Yeah. So what I'd like to share now, right, it's a short video of a project that I did in Grenada, right? So I was a consultant on this project. It was a joint venture with a number of organizations, right? So, you know, so I'm just going to share this now so you all can have a look, right, and see the kind of potential that aquaponics has for us in Trinidad, for the Caribbean, right, and the role it could play in food security and food sustainability.
Well, today what we're really doing is building the system here. This is a new system first like that in Grenada. I believe this system is basically for a Woman Methodist school, but also it will be used as a model for aquaponics within the school system. There's a few other schools will have system might be like this, might be different type of systems. But basically the technical, a lot of technicality went into this one first time I have seen it just the same way from the team from who is here.
Being able now to produce fish, to produce vegetables in a sustainable manner, in a manner that does not require traditional, how can I put it, productive lands, because it could be done in almost any type of environment because the soil is functional, right? And fishes and other aquatic organisms are basically grown in taps.
You learn a lot. The team and guys from within the community, okay, and the village here, everybody will get a glimpse of this thing and the experience to come and use it and see what it is all about. The Methodist school in Oban, the kids within the 4-H clubs, the teachers, and Ministry of Large will benefit from this mostly. But the ending up of the day, the whole scientific idea behind these things, I believe is great for the community. The effort and everything I put in it, I thank everyone and even the sponsor for giving us this opportunity.
Building a system like this here in Grenada for the olive branch project for the first time was a little difficult. We had some minor challenges along the way. One of the major challenges being sourcing materials to build the system. In addition to that, other minor challenges were sourcing the other pieces of equipment like uniseals, etc., to make the filtration system. But that wasn't much of a challenge because our company, Aquatic Solutions, we actually supply those things. So we brought those over readily, but the bigger items was a bit challenging. Other than that, getting it up in the system and running our climates are pretty much similar in terms of rainfall, the air temperature. So we expect that the systems will perform to the same capacity as they perform back in Trinidad. So other than that, I think everything is smooth sailing from here.
Well, we could say that we 95% accomplished. And now we're heading to open up on the 10th of January, which is next year, please. And right now we're trying to embark on all other young children that are ready to be part of this thing. We have a drinker man that just community with us. And to me, he's just like somebody like me, how you put all into it to really get things done. And that's how we are here today. As well, he come to assist me. If finally he could continue, which is a plus for us right now. We'll be looking for more students and elderly people who doing farming, and now we're trying now to embark on a lot of guys who are interested into this system here. Because we're going all what we want it inside, down to the fish. We have lettuce, we have watercress. Just last Thursday, put in the lettuce inside, and you can see how it's reaching right now. So we could see that the growth is there. So the next week or so, we have lettuce to eat.
My name is Afar Roberts, and I'm involved with the Aquaponics project at the World Managers, because I think it's a good thing for young persons like myself to learn. But I also think that it is beneficial to young persons. And I did agriculture before, but not short crops. I moved in with crops like nutmeg and so on. And I think more young persons should get involved because it is something good to learn. And going forward, I think that this would be the future of agriculture in Grenada. Well, from the time I've been here, I've observed that you can use fish, the bacteria from fish, to plant crops. I never knew that, and I thank Mr. Melvon and my teacher there for showing me how to handle this affair. Well, I plan to, take as much as I can get from this project, because in the future maybe I can build something of my own.
Right. So, so basically we saw just one of our aquaponics projects, right? And you can see how impactful, right? This project could be, right? For communities, for schools, for young persons, So aquaponics does hold tremendous potential as well as opportunity for anybody who wants to get started with it. So back to aquaponics. Aquaponic system designs, we have three primary methods that we use, flood and drain, deep water culture, and nutrient film technique. So basically we have the flood and drain where we have a container vessel, or basically a container that's filled with some sort of substrate, whether it's gravel or anything that could support the plants, and we have the water flow in that system. Then when it reaches a certain height, it automatically drains out. So every time the water fills, the plant gets water and nutrients, and when it drains, it gets air. Yeah. So we won't go too much into the exact design, right? But this is basically how our flood and drain system is and how it functions. And then we have the deep water culture system. We covered that before. So that's basically having a container with some sort of floating mechanism on top, usually a styrofoam, right? And your plant roots immersed in the solution. And then we had the nutrient film technique where the water with the nutrient flows through channels. Most popular is the pipes, and the plant's able to use the nutrients and water for growth and development. So aquaponics produces two crops instead of just one, vegetables and fish. So when you're looking at developing countries, places where just having food, right, is basically of utmost priority. Being able to produce both protein as well as vegetables, right, is an exceptional concept. So aquaponics could really make an impact in some of the more impoverished and developing countries around the world. I mean, we here in Trinidad and the Caribbean, we're not really that badly off in terms that we still have opportunity to go out there and to have selections on what we purchase and how we eat and those kind of things. But in some parts of the world, it's just a matter of eating or not eating. And when you can have an agricultural system that is, one, sustainable, two, producing two crops instead of one, right? That is where true potential, you could really see the true potential of this type of system. Right? So again, aquaponics, you could produce two crops instead of one, and just think about it from a business point of view as well too. Forget about just the food part of things. If you as a farmer and you typically had an aquaculture facility, all this while you're growing fish, you realize you could be growing plants for free, right? If you get started with the aquaponics system. Likewise, if you're doing hydroponics, right? Why not hook up an aquaculture system to do aquaponics, right? Grow your plants for free now, right? So you don't have to buy that expensive fertilizer anymore, right? And at the same time, you're doing a second crop, which is the aquaculture component, which is the aquaculture crops, the fish, the crayfish, you name it, right? So you can maximize production, maximize profitability. You could even do your aquaculture, you can have aquaculture tanks, and you can put your hydroponic component over that. So in the same space, you're growing two crops. You're maximizing and you get more profit per unit area. Yeah. And then on top of that too, there's an increased demand for locally grown organic foods. Because you're not using organic fertilizers, you can market to produce in niche markets and get more money for it. Increasing demand for vegetables and fish for health reasons, right? So I mean, the demand for fish itself is increasing. So again, don't just stick to thinking you just had to do plants alone. You could just incorporate some fish into your systems as well. And yeah, you could get that because the demand for fish is also increasing, right? There's an increased cost for water, fertilizer, and fuel, right? Now, if it is you integrate these systems together, it could minimize the use of these things. Higher productivity, no weeding necessary, modest use of water, 90% less water consumption. So it comes back down to all the benefits of hydroponics, all the benefits of aquaculture, all roll into one. So why aquaponics? Why not aquaponics? Yeah. So again, just a brief idea of how this thing works again. So the fish produce waste, bacteria converts it, the plant utilizes it, and clean water flows back to your fish in a nutshell. Now there's science behind it, Yeah, there's science behind it. So there's a number. So there are training courses. We have a training courses available that goes into in-depth the science and the processes and how to balance and how to do all of this. But at the same point in time, aquaponics is really a ecosystem type of agriculture, right? Once you put a new design and you size these things appropriately, everything else happens in a natural fashion, right? And basically your system would more or less be self-regulating after a certain point, and it will take care of itself. So local potential, again, aquaponics taken center stage on a lot of projects here in Trinidad. It's featured in a lot of newspaper articles on websites and different things like that. But to date, right, we don't have any real, how could I put it, milestones really made in aquaponics in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Meaning we don't really have as much persons involved in commercial aquaponics, right? As well as the commercial hydroponics to a certain extent as well, but way more so to aquaponics. And one of the reasons for that is really a lack of technical expertise. Because the simplest thing to do is to go online and Google aquaponics or go on YouTube. And that's when 98% of the persons who actually do aquaponics learns most of what they learn. And the thing that YouTube and stuff is the begin all and end all is not. Most of the systems you see, they are designed for climates that is not the same as ours. It's for temperate countries. We're in a tropical environment. So there's something called adoption, where you need to basically vary these designs, right? So the systems could operate to suit our type of environment. And this is what we have been doing for several years now, right? I've done multiple designs, everything off of YouTube, adopted it, working designs, created new designs, to really fine tune what works. Yeah, but sadly, you know, the majority of persons, they're not really privileged to that type of, you know, expertise, that type of experience in really doing research and development. So a lot of persons get started with systems, but they get started with the wrong type of systems and they don't get the results they're looking for. And then you hear people saying, you know, aquaponics is not feasible in Trinidad. You hear it all over. I don't want to call the organizations names, right? So organizations that should be really pushing this thing forward, they say, no, it's not really feasible. Why? Because up to this date, there's no real technical expertise being provided by them, right? To really help persons to become successful, as well as themselves to actually have working models that they could use and disseminate to the public. Yes, so we hope to change all of that, right, by really advancing the technology and showing people how beneficial, because I have done both aquaculture, hydroponics, aquaponics, as well as traditional type farming. So I could give you, based on my experience doing all, right, nobody could tell me that aquaponics, right, is not feasible and is not something that could be an extremely profitable venture for us here in the Caribbean. It is the best form out of all, if you ask me. And that's from my experience and the kind of productivity and stuff that I got from doing comparisons, from doing my trials and everything like that. So what could we grow in aquaponics? We grow basically both fish, crayfish, as well as plants, all of them together. So it's multiple crops, fish and plants, right? So a lot of persons always, Rakesh, you know, what should I use? Should I use ornamental fish? Should I use food fish in my aquaculture section to grow my plants? The choice is totally up to you. Both works fine. It's your goals and your objectives at the end of the day. If you want something aesthetic and you just like fish and you're vegetarian and for whatever reason, by all means, you could go and you could grow your koi's and your goldfish and you could use all of those things as well. But if you're like me and you're really is like, hey, well, I need to eat, right? And I need to feed myself. And I'm not going out there to always be expending monies in the supermarkets and stuff to get a frozen fish, right? So if you go most of the times you go and buy tilapia fillet and thing in the grocery, you realize most of these things are China imports, right? And China does skybox nothing to Trinidad. So them fish had to be in fillet for months and cold storage before it reach here. You know, in China, they just use carbon monoxide. There's special rooms that they spray fillets, fish fillets, right? They spray it with carbon monoxide because what that does, it infuses into the muscle tissue as well as the blood vessels to give it a fresh appearance. You notice when you 2-hour fillet, it does look fresh, like if you now slice it out of the fish. Them fish not fresh. And it don't even taste fresh. It doesn't look fresh, right? Because that is the techniques that they use to keep it, is give it the appearance that way. But there's nothing that can beat back fresh fish. Yeah. So, you grow it yourself, you can eat it fresh and you know what you're putting into your system. People say tilapia have a lot of negatives. You go online, they're saying it worse than bacon. Yes, all of that is misleading information. That is not true, right? If tilapia and stuff are fed a proper diet, you could eat one of the most nutritious fish from in the form of tilapia. So what plants we could grow? All the leafy greens. Basically everything we're growing in hydroponics, we could also grow in aquaponics. Yeah. Even this pawpaw tree here, this is our Australian guy, Murray Hallam, right? He's popular on YouTube and stuff as well, right? And again, pawpaw, all of these things can be grown from aquaponics. People even growing flowers as well. There are edible flowers as well too. There's one guy who's doing some edible flowers here locally. Yeah, and you could grow flowers as well too from the aquaponics system. You're growing plants. I never say that to be plant to eat. It could be anything. So if you want to pretty up your garden and want to put kois on all your nice blooming flowers, by all means, you could go ahead and you could go that option as well, that route as well. So choice of plants, right? For backyard systems especially, kind of dependent on what you want to eat, right? So you plant what you want to eat. The good thing about aquaponics is that unlike hydroponics, is you could do multiple cropping, meaning you could grow many different varieties, many different types of plants in the same system. With hydroponics, that's not so, right? You're very limited with how you could do that, because the fact that with hydroponics, they start with a fixed amount of nutrients and then over time it is deplete. Yeah, so if you put two plants and one is a better competitor than the other, one would automatically be at a disadvantage. With aquaponics, you have continuous nutrient generation. So again, there's real benefits to doing aquaponics. Pest management, right? So with aquaponics, bear in mind you have fish. So you want to practice as much as possible biological control, because your typical pesticides and stuff might kill your fish. Yeah. So we seem to the right, it might look a little disgusting as a parasitoid, right? As a larvae from a parasitic wasp, and they feed on things like caterpillars and those things. And right now, you see how rain start to fall. A lot of places getting problems with caterpillars because butterflies hunting, right? Laying eggs, hatching again, caterpillars, there's a whole set of dramas with that. Right, you could also do integrated pest management. You could plant companion plants like marigold. There are a couple of different plants you could plant that actually helps repel pests. So I actually have marigold that I put in little pots that I put throughout my facility, and it helps repel certain pests from my systems. So design of aquaponic units, right? So the essential components, you have your aquaculture section and your hydroponic section. And we went kind of in depth a bit into that when we did them separately before. So basically, these are some aquaponic systems that I would have done. So this is a hybrid system using both a NFT as well as a deep water culture system. So this grow bed here is really made from an IBC tank with styrofoam floating on top, and the fish tank here, filters, and the growing plants in it. Yeah, so these are some different photos. So this system, I custom designed this. I just like look at my materials and I'm like, hey, well, let me just design a system. And I came up with this design. Yeah. Then suddenly I drew up plans because experience, I've been doing several, like we've done multiple, a range of different designs and systems over the years, right? This is just one of them. And I mean, I honestly think there's a real good system because you're combining two different types of grow systems, meaning the deep water culture and the NFT. So the types of plants it could grow a greater variety of plants. And this is a little video showing a little overview of the system. So yeah, so that was just a little overview of that system. This is another one I did, but it was a little scaled up from that one. right? This was displayed at the UWI's Tech Agri Expo. Yeah. And here's a little run through of how that system would look like. Yeah, so this is just a little innovative design that we would have done. Yeah. So general system maintenance, study day with a walkthrough, observe your complete system, water checks, right? If you suspect problems, right? You clean your filters, so that kind of dependent on the type of system you're using, inspect plants for pests and disease, and you observe feeding behavior of fish. A loss of appetite is a good sign of problems, right? So considerations and design and selection of systems, site specific, right? So basically, if you're on hilly land, you might want to do like a deep water culture system that requires the land to be completely horizontal. You could do like the NFT. Again, the types of crops, right? So each type of system, whether NFT, DWC, flood and drain, different crops are best suited for different types of systems based on what it could offer in terms of support, etc. So use an appropriate system for the type of plants you want to grow. Again, also check out your investment capital. You know, for most of us, we might just want to go small scale, so you could do a little backyard system like that, or you could go large scale, right? So, you know, have a full acre greenhouse, you know, max out, up to you, depends on your production goal and your investment capital, right? A guideline is always ensure your tank's properly covered. You don't want the water getting green, because that green water is not good for your plants at all, right? So basically, the other type of system is the flood and drain, right? So common types of media, gravel and expanded clay. So these things really keep the plants supported. So again, the water fills in these containers. When you use a certain height, there's a mechanism in it that allows the water to drain back out. So you get periodically cycles between wet and dry in a certain aspect, right? So you get water, nutrients, and when it drains, you get air. Yeah, so here's our next example of a small scale flood and drain model. This was our online photo, right? So in aquaponics, you have different sizes of pipes, 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch, 2x4, just as though you have with hydroponics. So this is some NFT aquaponics that I would have done at my facility, right? And you can see the size of these bronze lettuce, no artificial fertilizers, everything naturally fertilized from the fish, right? And you can see the kind of quality we're speaking about. Look at this bacteria as well, right? Also grown from the system, totally fertilized by fish waste, right? There's some cucumbers I grew in the system as well, right? So you can see the kind of production. All this is our organically grown cucumbers, right? No from artificial nutrients, no pesticides, no none. Yeah. So these deep water culture systems. So these some online photos. Now we're going to share with you all some photos of a simple deep water culture system that I built using recycled materials. So for like my grow troughs, I use recycled greenhouse plastic, and I made my grow beds and different things like that. So there are some requirements for when you're designing a system. Typically a deep water culture system, approximately 16 inches deep. Length could vary. It needs to be aerated, and the raft that you're using to keep the plants on mustn't really absorb water because they do it sinking. Yeah, so this is a simple deep water culture system that I built, right? Using recycled materials at my home, at our facility, and you can see the kind of production. So all of these plants was grown together at the same time. Yeah, so that's me again, and there's some scythes holding up to the right. There's some different types of crops, tomatoes and stuff in front of me to the left, right? So this is big blue scythes. I can see the type of growth, celery, spinach, right? Mustard green. So these before and after photos. Yeah, all this is from the exact same system. Lettuce, look at our bronze lettuce, shadow benny, parsley, tomatoes. Don't talk about tomatoes. Don't talk about tomatoes. Yeah. So again, the production you can get from aquaponics is extremely could be off the charts, right? Once done properly, right, and once managed properly, aquaponics has huge potential. We need it here in the Caribbean. We need it here in the world. To me, it will always be the most sustainable form of agriculture. The reason why it's really not as big as it is because honestly, it's lacking that technical expertise, right? A lot of persons do have it. The institutions that promote agriculture do have it, right? Because it's almost mid-stage. It's beginning to mid-stage development, aquaponics as a whole. So there's no set formula on how to design systems and stuff, right? So meaning there's very limited sources that they could go to get proper designs and all of those things. So again, aquaponics, again, just to summarize, I'm very excited about this particular type of system, right? And it's something I hold very dearly. So again, I hope this presentation gives you also a good insight into the potential of aquaponics. Any questions you all have, feel free to contact me, right? My contact information is here, right? WhatsApp, you can telephone 466-2709. You can email, find us on Facebook, Aquatic Solutions, on YouTube, as well as Instagram. Our website, aquaticsolutions.com, will be out within the week, right? This upcoming week, and we have a lot of content. Like if you go on these spaces, like almost 80% of our projects we have not posted up as yet, but we will be updating soon, and we can take this thing from here on in. So again, thank you all for being through this presentation. I hope it was interesting to some extent. Again, aquaponics is something to be excited about, and feel free to touch base with us, and we could always chat a little bit more about it. Yeah, so again, thanks again, and any questions, you all know how to reach me. Okay? Goodbye, and good luck with whoever wants to get started with their own aquaponics system.